So I had an opportunity to watch this video by the Free Press. It is an interview face to face with Steve Bannon. And of course, Steve Bannon has been a name that has been around for nearly a decade, and of course before, but mainly a decade in complete mainstream. And the reason why is because Steve Bannon is literally the powerhouse, the political strategist, the mastermind behind the Donald Trump 2015 campaign, which literally got Donald Trump elected in 2016. Obviously, if anything, anybody knows, Donald Trump was counted out, but he still, in an odd way, it's not odd that he was able to do it, but it's odd in the fact that he was counted out. He was an underdog. And of course, he swept Hillary Clinton. Now, of course, the left, you're going to make the whole Russiagate remarks, but anybody who knows anything knows that even MSNBC had to pay out for the false claim of the Russiagate. Um, and this is literally somebody who does not align with the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. Like I've always said, many of my values are conservative on a personal level, on a constitutional level, and pretty socially liberal and economically somewhat liberal. But neither here or there. So, of course, Stephen Bannon is this powerhouse. He is not a dummy. Obviously, he graduated from Virginia Tech, Georgetown University, Harvard University, served a few years in the military, served a few years with Goldman Sachs as an investment banker, obviously deep into the media and entertainment. Of course, he's the founder of one of the co-founders of Breitbart News. Uh, And of course, we know that he did have somewhat of a falling out with Donald Trump because of Donald Trump's oldest kids, some of the things that he said. Then, of course, he kind of has had some legal issues, definitely with the what they call the a fraud, mail fraud, with the Trump's border wall. Um, I don't know all the details about that, so I'm not going to go into that. Um, Maybe that's something I could look into, or y'all can look into, or maybe if you know anything about it, point me in the right direction. But what we are going to definitely talk about is he definitely had some issues with the point where he didn't show up for his subpoena with Congress. But obviously, he's had some off-putting relationships. But what I really found interesting is mainly in this video. Of course, we know he is the world's biggest racist, the epitome of pure evil. He hates blacks, he hates Latinos, he hates Jews. Um, so I don't know too much about what he has maybe said on Breitbart. I don't like follow Breitbart, but what I really want to get into is mainly the details of this video. Obviously, this is done more recently after the Luigi Mangione incident in New York. Um, So I definitely want to deep dive because he makes some very interesting points. He makes some very compelling arguments. And so we definitely need to review this. And like I said, shout out to the Free Press for this interview. So we're definitely going to dissect it.
This club is from the streets.
I was at Cipriani Wall Street for the annual New York Young Republicans Club Gala, whose black tie attendees were toasting a populist uprising.
We're not going to.
It's funny, outside of the fact they call it Young Republicans, there's like a whole dude with like gray white hair. And I'm not even talking about Dave Bannon. If you like, go back a couple seconds ago, like a whole older dude there. So I don't know what y'all necessarily consider young, maybe under 60. If you ever been to a Democratic Party event, um, you'll notice that that's usually what they mean.
Take down this system in the CEO suites. We're going to do it from the streets.
The special guest was the person I wanted to talk to, former Trump advisor Steve Bannon, recently out of prison for contempt of Congress. Since the 2016 election, much of the media has cast Bannon as one of the great villains of our time. He's been charged with racism, anti-Semitism, and white nationalism. So you can imagine how surprised I was to hear an avatar of white supremacy bringing up racial representation in tech and using phrases like lived experience. Take a look.
Good to see you again.
Mr. Bannon,
Hey, how you
I'm
doing?
Ben. I'm with the Free Press.
Oh my God, how you doing?
Good to meet you.
The Free Press.
Are you good for an interview like right now? Should we start shooting the breeze? Did you just get into town? Where do you live?
All over the place. Mainly Capitol Hill.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Is that where you're coming from now?
No, I've been here 2 days.
Oh.
Just taking meetings.
Where are you staying?
I can't tell you. It's top secret.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
I could tell you, but
I do love the fact that he's very skeptical of that question. I mean, literally, if you are one of the most hated persons in media, most news organizations are against you. You're literally called, the most racist man in the world. Then yeah, I mean, who the hell really wants to answer that question? I mean, that's just common sense, street smarts. So yeah, but I do like his reply.
I have to blow the camera. I can't tell you. It's top secret.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
I could tell you, but I have to blow the camera.
Well, I guess I don't really care about this info that much.
It's a secret location.
Okay. All right, well, that won't be a scoop then. I just watched the Errol Morris documentary on you.
American Dharma.
Yes.
What'd you think?
I found it fascinating.
Why?
Why?
So we're going to do jujitsu here.
Yes, no, I love that. Why did I find it fascinating? I guess what was interesting about it was that, well, you seem to have a project. What would you say your project is, if you could sort of sum it up?
It's populist nationalism. It's to make sure that the little guys in this country who are the full faith and credit of the country depends upon the working class and middle class, not just for taxes and for the pension funds that drive the capital markets, but also for their sons and daughters who serve in the military. And they're the backbone of society. But they always get the short end of the stick. And the film ends, I think, quite powerfully. And this film was made in 2018, where I say there's a burning building, and I say, hey, unless there's some fundamental, basic changes in the structure of this country, particularly the economic side, you're going to have a French Revolution. It's going to.
So, kind of to piggyback what he said, obviously, if anybody who knows has studied Martin Luther King, one of the things that he was kind of getting into after the whole passage of the 1964 Civil Rights Act is the Poor People's Campaign, where he was getting the black and white working class together. That was the whole reason why he was even in Memphis. He was unionizing black and white garbage workers. And of course, he got shot. Now, if you really did some research, I would definitely recommend reading the book by William F. Pepper, The Lawyer for Coretta Scott King, and then you will understand that it was a whole conspiracy by the government to assassinate King because he was talking about um, economic populism. But one of the quotes that King actually used was, "I am afraid that I've integrated my people into a burning house." And of course, there was different aspects and thoughts kind of tied into that statement. But one of the thoughts was, I have literally did this movement, the civil rights movement, to the point where we are on a sinking ship. And so that's kind of what Steve Bannon is alluding to. Um, and to kind of give a little bit of backstory about my life, I had the opportunity when I was about 13 years old to go to Paris with my mom, and we went to the Versailles. The Versailles is obviously one of the biggest castles in France that um, the king and the queen stayed at. So, literally, what happened was during the French Revolution, the people were so poor that this dumbass bitch, Queen Marie Antoinette, had this bright idea to go out and say, let them eat cake while she eats cake. And so, of course, if you're starving, you're hungry, you're a peasant, you're poor, you're dealing with this feudal system, and the people you're being oppressed by the lords and by the nobility at that time, you're going to rise up and conduct a mutiny. So they ran in, killed the king, and also they killed Marie Antoinette. They dragged them to Paris, and of course, the whole guillotine happened. So this is kind of what Steve Bannon is also alluding to. So just to kind of give people some backstory that may not know about French history.
It's going to turn bad. You've got to. Thanks. Son. It's economic side. You're going to have a French Revolution. It's going to, it's going to turn bad. You've got to. Thanks. Son. You've got to make basic changes. And look what happened in Midtown, 10 days ago, where a guy got gunned down in the back because of, people's anger right below the surface on things like health insurance and healthcare, kind of their lived experience. So I keep telling people, particularly donors and these rich folks, that unless we make some basic fundamental changes, you're going to have, what happened in France in 17. So you can have another version of the American Revolution where we make everybody a capitalist, or you're going to have the French Revolution version. You're going to have one or the other, and you can pick them. The wealthy can continue to try to beat back this rising populist tide, or it can kind of make some basic changes. And we're going to see that over the next 2 years. We're going to see what happens.
Yeah, I think at one point he asks you, okay, so you want a working class revolution here, or maybe you want to stave off a working class revolution.
Yes.
Is that more accurate to say?
I want working class and middle class people actually have a bigger ownership stake in society. I call it a piece of the action, right? Mm-hmm. We're not socialists, we're capitalists. We just want people to actually have a stake in society and have decent wages and decent living conditions.
And that's where the ideology of what they would call compassionate capitalism, which is obviously the society as a whole does better when everyone in society is doing well. And of course, we can go into another topic later on about economics, which I'm pretty sure that I will get into that just because, I've kind of spent the past couple of years really studying it. But that is always one of the last hopes before going into the socialist or communist mentality, or economic ideology. Obviously, people want to have their own ownership and they want to be able to reward merit, but at the same time, you you don't want the government to have too much control, um, just because a lot of people in the government can't be trusted. I've obviously studied socialism and communism, but what I think that one of the things that Karl Marx really fails to emphasize is human psychology, that there are psychopaths, sociopaths, and narcissists in this world that will really do whatever it takes for them to achieve. And a lot of them will, you know, move into places of power. So even though certain socialist and communist revolutions may have started on a good foot, um, a lot of times somebody somewhere ends up in government, ends up in power, and then things just become potent. And honestly, you see that even now with the American government. And so, do you really want them to have that much power?
So is that going to be accomplished with cutting off immigration? I mean, is that sort of the biggest thing for you?
No, but it's one of the key things for wages. Mm-hmm. The Biden regime allowed, 12 to 15 million people in here, and they were upfront about it. The Federal Reserve said we got it. For them to take down inflation was to lower wages, particularly of unskilled workers. I mean, it's very evident what happened.
And anybody who kind of remember what Jerome Powell was saying a few years ago. Now let's just talk about Jerome Powell for a quick second. Jerome Powell was originally appointed to the Federal Reserve by Donald Trump. So when a leftist comes and says anything, you have to understand that Joe Biden also kept Jerome Powell. And one of the things that Jerome Powell said a few years ago was, because of the great resignation, the silent quitting, because people were bouncing from job to job, trying to demand higher wages. And you do see that in late 2021, 2022, that people were getting paid more. And so he actually said that that was one of the reasons for inflation. And that is not necessarily a direct correlation to inflation. Not saying that it doesn't happen, but that's not necessarily the ultimate causation for inflation. So what they do is, because the Federal Reserve has a dual mandate, one of the mandates is to control employment. And so by jacking up interest rates, a lot of jobs quit hiring. A lot of businesses can't pay back their loans, so they start laying people off. And of course, that suppresses wages. So when you actually look, and if anybody who's on the left and did support Bernie Sanders or still supports the ideology of Bernie Sanders, you will see that he had a interview in 2015, and one of the things that he was saying is open border policies is a Koch brothers think tank type of policy where they do want people to flood into the country and be able to suppress wages to get cheap labor. So we could definitely go into an immigration debate, or we can go into an immigration topic, but the problem really is that you're creating this underclass, you're creating this indentured servitude class, not just with the H-1B visas, but also the with the failed uh, border policies, because now there is no pathway to citizenship. If you cross the border illegally, you're not a lot of times you're actually banned. If you don't leave on your own and you're actually deported, you're banned for 10 years. As you can see, DACA and DAPA have still not been resolved. So now you're literally not only suppressing American wages, because if you look at Tyson Foods, they laid off 1,200 people, American workers, and then they literally gave out these visas to replace those workers. If you look at Tesla, Tesla just laid off thousands of American workers to be able to dodge the American law where before you go get these H-1B visas, that you have to make sure that there's not Americans to be able to fill those jobs. So, Elon Musk is definitely gaslighting you. But a lot of the reasons why is because it disproportionately affects your wages. And of course, a lot of liberals are going to say, well, I have a desk job, I have an administrative job, da 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 da. Well, that's great. But a lot of other people actually have normal jobs, blue collar jobs. And if an American citizen demands a living wage, which is no longer $15 an hour, let's just say it's 20, 25, $30 an hour. Well, why hire you when this person over here will work, you know, 12 hours a day for $8, $10 an hour, maybe $12 an hour, and do less complaining, demand less, call out less. And of course, you're going to say, well, they're looking for better um, opportunities. Well, then we're going to have to go into, well, why are these people coming here? What has the American government done to these countries to disable um, their way of life to the point where they want to leave their family, travel thousands of miles through horrendous terrain, possibly die, get their kids sick, if not even kidnapped, and put into a trafficking ring just to come into the country, and then may or not be able to get a job, and then maybe have to sleep on the streets or literally work as an indentured servant and not be able to get citizenship and the benefits that come with being a citizen. So, definitely want to go into a later topic about that, but I kind of do agree. I'd probably say a strong 90% with what Steve is saying right here.
And you can look at the math. So number one, for the for the working class, really near the bottom in the unskilled area, you have to stop illegal immigrant. You have to stop illegal alien invasion. Otherwise, they're never going to have a chance to have rising wages because they have to compete. Of the 12 to 15 million, I think there's 6 to 8 million in the workforce. It's just flood the zone with the workforce. Now, I'm also for big restrictions on legal immigration until Silicon Valley, until these places have I don't know, 20% African American and 20% Hispanic, and kids that can go to college, and every college you go to, every engineering school you go to is flooded with foreign students taking American jobs. I don't agree with that. American jobs should be for American citizens. President Trump and I actually disagree with it. President Trump said a couple of months ago, he said, hey, on every college graduate, right, and every graduate of a community college should have a green card stapled to their diploma. Remember, he said this. This was after he came back from having dinner with David Sachs and these billionaires out in the tech billionaires in San Francisco. He said every graduate, foreign student graduate, and every foreign student graduate from community college should have a green card attached to the diploma. And I said, President Trump, on the show, I said, we have tremendous respect for you. We love you. We're at your base. But I've got another recommendation. I'd like to put an exit visa on every college graduate, foreign student that graduated from college here in 30 days to leave and go back home and help make their nation great again. And we shouldn't take any foreign students in community colleges. That should be for American citizens, particularly for African Americans and Hispanics. They're never going to get up the economic chain unless we do this. So
That thing you said earlier about until we have 20% representation of African Americans, 20% of Latinos in Silicon Valley jobs, we shouldn't be going to.
Right now, I have zero. Almost all. By the way, I went to a land before I went to.
And this is a very important topic. We are investing our money overseas, spending trillions of dollars to fight these wars for our so-called ally, which I'm not even going to get into that topic right now. But we're spending trillions of dollars. I mean, $24 trillion approximately has been spent just on Afghanistan and Iraq, which is absurd. So, but yet, schools are underfunded. A lot of kids are not on grade level as far as their arithmetic, writing, reading, their ability to understand American history, world history, even just the basics of that. Of course, you know, the school's only going to teach you so much. So then you have to get out here and, read books, listen to books, watch documentaries, learn this stuff for yourself. But at the same time, we are not spending the effort to not only teach blue collar jobs, but we're also not teaching regular fundamental um, development skills for white collar jobs. And we're definitely not funding and not prioritizing STEM jobs in urban schools or underfunded schools, and even out in rural areas. I do understand the issue within the urban school systems and why they are underfunded. That is a whole reason with like tax funding in your local district, property tax and stuff. That's a whole other topic we can go into later. But we also have to look at a lot of these rural areas. Um, so community college is a fundamental building block in order to get into the university. You're going to save a lot of money. A lot of times you'll be able to qualify for FAFSA. You'll be able to get at least your associate's degree for free. And then you could probably even negotiate, um, not necessarily negotiate, but a lot of ways that you can budget your way into getting that 4-year degree. So community colleges are definitely a fundamental thing. A lot of places you can learn how to weld. You can get that some basic STEM and computer science, some tech work degrees, business degrees. Obviously, you can just get your regular general education and your continuing ed and stuff like that. But to not push that, to not fund that, and then to go overseas and get that kind of work only to get cheap labor for a lot of people who are not that qualified, because we can obviously go into the you know the O1 visas, the E1 and E2 visas and stuff like that, which are actually for exceptional um, and gifted people. Like your Luca, like your you know, uh, of course, somebody with the same intelligence as Elon Musk would have gotten his visa and stuff like that. but we definitely have to be properly represented in not only just Silicon Valley, but in a lot of areas. So he's completely correct. Definitely need a lot of Black and Latino and just, you know, even just American whites and American citizens more represented in Silicon Valley. You know, these are 150, 200, 300 plus $1,000 jobs. Some even give you stock benefits. So by the time you're done, you can even be millionaires. So, you know, we really do have to prioritize a lot of this.
Georgetown and Harvard. I went to college to Land Grant University, which is basically the blue collar universities that President Lincoln started. They're supposed to be for state kids. It's a good engineering school in Virginia. And today you go to the engineering school, particularly the graduate school, it's all Asian or South Asian students. And here's the reason is that their governments are paying full freight, the full freight for them to go. In-state students pay two-thirds less, so they always want to take foreign students. You can't do it. You're not going to get folks into high value added post-industrial jobs based around artificial intelligence or coding or anything like that until we make the engineering schools and computer science schools available to them. And right now we don't. This is the reason. It's not about intelligence. It's about access to opportunity. This is why Silicon Valley has virtually no African Americans and no Hispanics. It's de minimis. That's because they have to compete against the whole world for those jobs. Why should an American citizen, his family's been here 5 or 6 generations, that can go to college, get a degree, and is smart enough, why should they have to compete against the world on the territory inside the United States? It's not fair, and this is one of the reasons you're seeing the seething anger is that people aren't getting good jobs, and one of the reasons they're not getting good jobs, they have to compete against the whole world here in the United States. It's simply not fair, and
Have you ever thought
it's going to stop.
Have you ever thought of teaming up with Ibram X. Kendi?
No, haven't.
Do you see why I'm making the kind of parallel there?
Why?
Well, I mean, he's sort of all
I
about
don't know who he is.
Oh, he wrote How to Be an Anti-Racist?
Oh yes. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
No, I haven't.
Do you see why I thought of him?
Yeah, but they come at it from like a racial point of view. This has nothing to do with race.
Because
yes.
you've mentioned until we have equal or proportionate representation
This is why President Trump and this kind of revolution you're seeing going on now is going to get African Americans and Hispanics, because you realize we're getting beyond race, beyond eventually gender, and get down to economics and money, or money and power. That's where this will all go to. And quite frankly, if we keep this populist nationalist revolution going, we're going to have more than enough votes that we can make fundamental change here. But you're going to have, they're not going to pat you on the head and go, oh, this is terrific, this rhetoric's great, we're just going to toss you the keys and allow this to happen with working class, middle class people. It's not going to happen. The system is so rigged, not just for the wealthy, but really for the super wealthy. Now, it's almost an oligarchy. That totally different than what our founders and framers in the revolutionary generation had in mind. Totally opposite of what they did. They broke off from essentially an oligarchy where the landed aristocracy and the crown had corrupted commons so much to make it really not governable. So we're kind of back in that same situation, and that's why you got to keep hammering. And we're going to know in the next 2 years, this coming year and then the year after that, whether we're successful or not.
It seems like if we want to counter an oligarchy, people in charge like Elon Musk might not be the first people that would come to mind.
We'll have to see.
What do you think of that critique?
Well, he put in $250 million in kind of a grassroots. He didn't really buy. He had a little bit of money put into these Ginsburg ads, but other than that, he put about $200 million into having essentially people like on our show, our audience, that did the election integrity things and to make sure the vote wasn't stolen, and also just went door to door, did the canvassing, did the voter registration.
Well, my point is that having these very wealthy people involved in, a populist revolution led by Donald Trump and Vivek,
Well, Trump is definitely a populist nationalist. We'll have to see. I believe, and look, the proof's in the pudding. Mm-hmm. I'm in absolute agreement with you that hey, the policies going forward have to be populist policies. We have to cut no tax on tips. No tax on Social Security.
That's so arbitrary, though. The tips thing. Everyone else pays taxes except that if you're a waiter. Why? How do you justify that?
It's all three. It's no tax on Social Security, which is about $600 billion, and no tax on overtime. If you start focusing on
no tax on Social Security, meaning no Social Security taxes, meaning no putting.
No.
Oh, people pay taxes on the Social Security that they were.
Yes.
Yeah, that doesn't seem. I'm not an expert, but that doesn't seem Doesn't seem
Fair.
right.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, these are people who are retired. You just, sort of keep more of their
I'm
money.
going to make you.
Am I a Republican?
I'm going to make you a popular. Not a
I'm
Republican.
having
I'm not a Republican.
You don't identify as a Republican.
I'm not a conservative. Not a Republican. I'm a
What
populist.
are you?
I'm a populist nationalist.
Yeah.
Now, by the way, so that's you're right. It doesn't seem fair. You work all your life and you get a little $1,200, Social Security check, and they tax you on it. They tax you on the income. That you've already done it once. You've already paid tax
This
on
is an
your
interesting
income.
thing you said about the guy who
Bro. I would even go a step further and say Social Security beneficiaries deserve more. Deserve more. And the higher income brackets, so
shot the Luigi, who shot the
Yeah.
CEO.
There's a seething anger right underneath it.
What should be done
Luigi.
about that?
Well, what should be done about it? I think you need to fundamentally, and look, health insurance and healthcare is not exactly my line of country, but I think you're going to see people address this. There's clearly a seething anger underneath there of people that don't feel that the insurance companies and the medical companies are looking out for their interests versus focused on just profits. Right, and so I think it's got to be addressed. Obviously, you can't have a situation.
How would it? What's
hang
the
on,
populist nationalist way to address that?
you can't have a situation where people are lying in wait and come out and gun people down in the back. I don't know. Is the French model work? Does the Singapore model work? There's a ton of alternatives out there. A lot of people are addressing. President Trump's looking at now different alternatives. Like I said, other smarter people than me will come at the conclusion. But there's a couple.
And at the bare minimum, we should have at least a public option where I may want to spend my 400 and some dollars a month into a system like Medicaid. Um, that way I know I've put into the system. Um, if I was to get seriously injured or seriously ill, or I need an expensive surgery, I don't have to worry about being denied. And then you have to have the balance because you know you're talking about billions and billions and even trillions of dollars when you put all of these insurance companies together. You're talking about their lobbyists. They have so much power. Think about it. Luigi was just given a federal terrorism charge. He was given a perp walk as if he was the man of steel. It was even to the point where even Eric Adams wanted to show his face to kind of scrub his sins, to clean his laundry. And the reality is, the reason why the public option will work is because there are people who would rather pay into that, not have to worry about being denied. Medicaid, in a lot of instances, has a better negotiating with hospitals, with pharmacies, to get lower prices, and you don't have to worry about networks. And then, hey, if you want to get your platinum, triple gold, diamond, platinum plan from Blue Cross Blue Shield, from Aetna, from Humana, from United Health, great. That's on you. You need some kind of cosmetic surgery, or you want some kind of premium doctor, or you want some kind of super specialist, the world renowned, and you want some of the most top tier, crazy medication, it can regenerate an arm in an hour kind of medication, then yeah, go ahead, you're super rich, go ahead, spend your money on a platinum plan and go get your private health insurance on top of that. But at the bare minimum, I don't know if Medicare for all is the right thing. I don't know. I don't even think that it is something that could be truly instituted into American society, considering we're dealing with the billionaire oligarch class. But at the very at the very base minimum, we need some kind of public option.
Pretty good models out there. Singapore's got a model. France has a model. There's other. We know certain things don't work, like the British healthcare model, the Canadian model. So a lot of smart people, I think, are now going to put this.
And just a fun fact, the fact that there is a special ally that we can never say no to. This ally is actually first, not America first, but the ally first. We've given them billions and 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 billions of fucking dollars. They got some kind of form of universal health care, but we got Luigi. So Luigi, Mario.
Further up the, up the, for them to focus on. But you can't have a situation where you have this anger and it boils over to gunning people down, shooting them in the back in Midtown Manhattan. Then you're literally going to have a French Revolution, and that's what I'm trying to avoid.
Yeah. What did you think that last image of that movie was, the Errol Morris film, when he shows the burning barn? What do you think? It was interesting. You guys were kind of disagreeing about the meanings of films throughout, and I wondered what you think he was saying with that.
The burning barn is it's going to burn. Look, a guy shooting a guy in Midtown Manhattan. And remember, Luigi is a very wealthy kid, has led a very spoiled life, and never really had to have a job or engaged. Okay. Mm-hmm. The guy he shot in the back is kind of from working class, lower middle class, or worked his way up through the system. He's gunned down in cold blood. You can't have a system. I keep saying, if you don't make fundamental changes, and the seething anger underneath it showed you that Luigi, at least for a certain part of the population, has tremendous support. When you get to that point, it should be flashing red that we have a problem.
So I thought that
Trump is the kind of the solution, or Trump's populist nationalism, because he's taken, like in New York City. Look at the turnout he had in New York City, in the South Bronx, and we're going to the bodega run, all these things. You see, New York City, he did what he did early on last year from this dinner forward, is an example of what we can do.
I thought, since you've asked, that image, that last image seemed to represent what you want to do in Errol Morris's mind, which is burn everything down. Do you think that was?
Well, hang on, but listen. The opposition to us wants to shoot guys in the back. That's the equivalent of burning it down. What I'm saying is that the institutions in this country have by and large failed the American people. The Federal Reserve has failed the American people. The big banks have failed the American people. The government has failed the American people. Look at the seething anger out there. Steve Bannon did not create that anger. Steve Bannon's offering alternatives, like President Trump is, populist nationalist alternatives to the anger that's out there. That's what's burning it down. And what I said is that unless you make changes, remember my last comment, unless you make changes, this is what you're going to get.
So you're the water that's going to put the fire out?
No. The people.
All right. It was a strange metaphor.
No. Yeah. But the people, the outpouring of people saying we need to have changes is going to be that water.
All right. Thank you.
All right. So for all of y'all who are watching, if you disagree, he's still the world's most racist man. Let me know why. And if you think that, he is kind of saying, if you think that he's kind of saying some great stuff, let me know that. But I do appreciate y'all for commenting. Y'all did let me know that some previous videos, I didn't have my mic turned all the way up. So I think today is going to be a little bit different. So we're going to keep working on these videos. I'm going to keep trying to give you some great content, some great commentary. A lot of stuff I already kind of know, but if I need to spend a few hours learning, researching, discovering, then I will. I just want to give y'all the best of the best of the best. And like I said, it is 2025. Whether you like Trump, hate Trump, good publicity, bad publicity is still publicity. So I think that 2025 is going to be some great content. I want to give that to y'all. Appreciate it. Y'all be safe. Peace.